Hi everyone, this is Rebecca McNeil, Senior Education Manager at Healthcare Source, and welcome to our audio blog. Today I have Brian Lee, CEO of Custom Learning Systems, joining me to discuss an exciting upcoming HCAHPS webinar. Hi Brian, how are you?
Greetings, good to talk to you.
You too. So on June 11th, Custom Learning Systems will be hosting a Healthcare Source sponsored webinar. The title of that webinar is The C-Suite's Role in HCAHPS Transformation, and this is part of their HCAHPS Breakthrough Series. Today, Brian and I will be discussing why healthcare professionals should attend this webinar and why the leadership role is so critical when it comes to improving HCAHPS scores. Let's get started. So Brian, you participated in the HCAHPS Readiness webinar that we did back in December. And one of the really interesting statistics that came out of that was 57% of the managers we surveyed have clearly defined HCAHPS goals for their department, but only 24% of frontline employees have clearly defined performance goals around HCAHPS. Why do you think there's such a discrepancy between leaders and their staff when it comes to these goals?
Well, it's a great question. First of all, I want to say that I think that the concept of 57% of managers having clearly defined goals is much higher than the reality. I think the people who responded to your survey tend to be those individuals that are engaged on a journey to improve the patient experience. But I believe it is far less than that, and I think 24% of frontline employees having clearly defined individual performance goals is a outrageously high estimate. I think it's virtually negligent. I think most staff today have limited to no knowledge of HCAHPS in the reality, and there's two reasons for that. I think most managers struggle with how to engage their staff. And I think the fatal mistake that is made by most C-suites is this. Number one, they assume that managers know what to do when it comes to moving HCAHPS scores. And the second fatal mistake is they assume staff want to do it. And my experience, and I'm in a hospital somewhere every week in the U.S., and based on the hundreds of hospitals I've gone to, is that lack of knowledge is the fundamental defect at the moment for most organizations' plans to improve the HCAHPS experience. Why is this such a disconnect, even if these numbers were true? Because most managers are struggling with any mechanism, any way, shape, or form to engage their staff. That is absolutely one of the biggest challenges facing managers today. You look at nursing, there's anywhere, typical nursing director is anywhere from 80 to 120 staff reporting to her or him. The span of control is huge. The amount of demands are enormous, and I would think that the number of it's interesting when I survey managers, how many have monthly staff meetings? I know 50% of hands will go up. When I survey their staff, 10% of hands go up. I think the concept of making time to communicate with staff is a noble idea that is practiced very, very poorly.
Right. So given that reality, and my next question you could probably give a very long answer to, and we don't really have time to get to everything, but how can healthcare leaders motivate their staff to be accountable for the organization's HCAHPS goals?
Well, if you want leaders to be able to motivate the staff to be accountable, the staff need to buy into the idea that they own the relationship with the patient. And, if you look at the profile, we look at these 5 types of people who work in healthcare today: superstars, winners, grinners, whiners, and slugs. The fact is only about 20% of staff are actively engaged. So you can't hold somebody accountable for something that they don't know what to do. And so my message is this: where are staff learning their service communication skills? Are they learning from their families at home? No, they're not. Are they learning from teachers in high school? No. Are they learning in medical school? No, medical schools aren't teaching this. Are they learning from their frontline supervisor? Sometimes yes, sometimes bad ideas. The fact is they don't know. So if leaders want to hold staff accountable for HCAHPS goals, they first must educate their staff on what to do and how to do it. And so our model, our recommendation is that that once a year, every hospital needs to schedule a 3-hour HCAHPS-based service excellence patient experience workshop where they can learn what they should do. Then you can begin the process of holding them accountable. Is this making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Now, my last question here, obviously, I think everybody should attend this webinar. Why do you think healthcare leaders should tune into the webinar on June 11th?
Great question, several answers. Number one, they need to begin the process of educating the leaders and staff on what to do and how to do it. And we have spent the last 2 years developing the content for this webinar and webinar series that follows. But the key thing with this first webinar is to get your senior leaders, your executive team, your vice president, CEO, your domain owners and champions, your patient experience or service excellence council, your quality professionals, and absolutely critical to have your HR leaders take this, because what we're going to do in the webinar is we're going to lay out a blueprint of how to successfully engage their staff and what to do and how to do it. We're going to give answers, we're going to give tools, and as a matter of fact, one of the tools that we're going to provide participants, thanks to the sponsorship of Healthcare Source, is we're going to have everybody request a set of accountability agreements. Now, these are a set of digital forms, about 20 pages, that they can adapt to their own situation to create accountability agreements with their managers and their managers with their staff. So we're going to give them a blueprint, we're going to give them tools, we're going to give them education, and we're going to make it interesting. And a 1-hour investment is going to pay a dividend for a very long period of time.
That's great. Thank you for your time today, Brian. Really appreciate it.
Delighted.
And thanks, listeners, for tuning into our podcast. I hope you all enjoyed it. Be sure to register for the HCAHPS webinar before June 11th. You can visit our blog, healthcaretalentmanagement.com, to get the registration link.